Travel and Things presents In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batsoffen, and I'm joined today by Life Coach Louise Diesel. Louise, good morning. Welcome to you.
Hi, David. It's so good to be here.
It's great that you joined me. I know that people are going to say to me, Life Coach, what is that? Why do we need one? And that's why I've asked you to join me on In Conversation With, because I believe that we are all to a larger or lesser extent, going through changes in our lives brought about by COVID and this past year, which seems to have turned into a decade and a half now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing is, you get different kinds of life coaches, and all of them have their purpose. And I think that's the really important thing to know, to understand, is that when you're looking for a coach and considering a coach, you need to know what you're looking for. So I'm not a typical life coach. Some coaches are performance based and will help you get from kind of goal, whatever your goal is, from point A to point B and hold you accountable, that kind of thing. I think most coaches have evolved from there now, though. So it's really important, like I say, to find a coach that you resonate with, and to have a really good conversation with coaches and figure out what it is that you're looking for and if that's the right person for you. So I call myself a life coach because more people know that term than any other term, but really I like to call myself a transformation coach. I'm a specialist in human behavior and a breakthrough specialist. I'm trained with someone that you know, Dr. John Demartini. I'm a facilitator of his, and I really do help people break through limiting emotions, stress, whatever's holding them back from living a more meaningful and fulfilling life. For me, that's, going within and learning to manage that is more important. And then from that space of kind of wholeness and feeling grateful and feeling balanced, then you can go and create and work on the goals and work towards what you want to work towards. But really, it starts one step behind that.
Yeah.
So that's what I specialize in.
So take me through the process, because I'm assuming that there is one. You don't just sort of rock up on day one and go, life coach me. There has to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And is there an age limit? I mean, can you do this with school children? Because I should imagine that they, maybe more than anybody else, are going through some really tough times at the moment. There is school, there isn't school. They can see their friends, they can't see their friends. As adults, we tend to become a bit insular as we get older, but not so with the youngsters.
Yeah, so there's no age limit. And in fact, so what I do, and I think what most coaches do, can tailor it to children. I mean, I'm a mom, so and children is really important to me. So I love working with children. And believe it or not, children get this really quickly. Children are more adaptable. Their brains are less hardwired. So there's a lot of reasons why. And they, very often, if I have a session with an adult that might take 2 hours, I can do that with a child in 20 minutes.
Wow.
They just get it. They get it quickly. And they're more present. You see children, a child will fall and hurt themselves and cry, and then it's over. Or have a fight, and they'll be upset, and then it's over. Then they're best friends again. So they're more present, and they're able to adapt. But it really is important, that we teach these kids these tools. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. I work a lot with moms. And I believe that by giving the moms the tools, the moms are able to then filter that through to their children, which has been my journey. And what has driven me to learn so much for myself is really I wanted to raise empowered and inspired children. That was my mission. And my mentor years ago said, the only way to do that is to become empowered and live an inspired life yourself. They learn from what you do and not from what you say.
Mm.
And so in times like this, I've really had to walk my talk and, can I manage my stress levels? Can I adapt? Can I see the blessings in the crisis? And how do I apply all those tools so that they see me living it?
Yeah.
And I have an 18-year-old, almost 19-year-old now, who used to really resist me. So I've been learning for the last 20 years, and especially for the last 15 years, I learned tools that really changed my life. And I started at every opportunity teaching this to my children, at the dinner table, or they'd share a story about school, and then I would start to share a different perspective. And when they were little, they listened and they took it all in. and they just loved it. You know, mommy and daddy know everything, so they listen. But when he hit, especially the older one, when he hit teenage years, he used to go, "Oh, mom, not that stuff again, please, not that." And then when he got a little bit older, like the last 2 or 3 years, he started applying it in his life. I didn't know how much, actually. And just last year said to me, he can't believe how much it's helped him. And he's so passionate that he's now inspired to teach, and he's teaching young adults, and we've done some courses together. So we can teach our children, and it's a process of understanding it and applying it ourselves, and then slowly teaching it in a way that is relevant to them in little bites. You know, they don't learn the same way. But what I've done over the years is, as something's come up, I've offered a different perspective. And I have worked with some children. Some of my clients asked me to work with their children. And that's what we do, is we just kind of plant the seeds. And some schools are doing it, which is really inspiring. I did a couple of sessions at St. David's before COVID hit. And my daughter's at Rodin, and they are doing teaching some of these mindfulness skills. But I really wish it was mainstream. I have a friend that's teaching some of these skills to teachers in the Cape at different schools. I really believe it should be a subject. It needs to be mainstream, and at least life skills and coping. It should be something that is one of our extramurals or part of the syllabus from little.
Yeah, I don't even believe it needs to be an extramural. I believe that there are subjects that children can get rid of that hark back to, I want to use the word colonial days, when those subjects were of import. And they no longer are. I mean, there is a life skills subject, and I asked my niece what life skills taught you, and she said basically nothing. I mean, children come out of school unprepared for life as they're about to find out. You know, if you think back, although I suppose writing out a check is no longer valid. Now you have to learn to do online banking, and I think, if nothing else, the youth of today are very well schooled in the digital age, whereas we, and I'd like to include you and I in the same group, still hark back to those, you know, we still battle a little bit with certain aspects of digitalization. But with that in mind, Louise, take me back to Louise in matric. What was Louise like? What did Louise want to do?
So I always wanted to be a teacher as a little girl, in fact. And my dad said to me, "No, you don't make enough money being a teacher. So rather have your own business, and one day you can buy your own school." But I think deep down, I always have loved being a student and a teacher. And so that's really what I am now, is a student and a teacher, just of different things. In matric, I was in love with I met my husband when we were in standard 8, which is grade 10 now. I was in love, I was excited. I'd planned to study, and I did. I studied a BCom marketing, and I kind of had dreams then of working for some glamorous company like Revlon, or one of these international, real glamorous, you know, businesses. I ended up going into the family business with my dad. But I've always loved learning. And I've always had a yearning to want to be more. I never felt like I was enough. From a little girl, I never felt like I was enough, good enough. And so I had this drive to want to succeed, to prove myself so that I could be enough. And it was just this endless kind of rat race of, you know, when I do this, when I achieve this, when I achieve this. And it was just never enough. And kind of years down the line, I finally realized that it's not about achieving on the outside, it's about going within. And so I think that's what I was looking for all those years. So I was excited, I was shy, I was a bit of an introvert, and then met the biggest extrovert, as you know. And
just to let people in on the in-joke, I met Louise and her husband at a game reserve, what, about 2 months ago? Maybe it was Valentine's Day. So it was
Valentine's.
Yeah. And we shared a vehicle together, and it was just an awesome, fun time. And then we found out that we both have Dr. John F. DeMartini in common, and I think things progressed from there. And yes, your husband is, I thought I like you, was introverted at school and then extroverted myself. But your husband is in a category all of his own.
Yes, he
And I
is.
mean that in the nicest sense of the word.
Yeah, so he was good for me, and yeah, I think I'm good for him. So become like you, more extroverted over the years, and as I've learned to just believe in myself and just be myself.
Yeah. Um, how did you come upon Dr. John, and why? Because I know we spoke just before we started the recording that the shelves behind you are full of his books, his work manuals that you work with. How did you? I found him because I interviewed him on one of his early trips to South Africa, and we hit it off. Um, how did you find him, and how have you continued to find him?
So, like I say, I've always been a student, and I did all kinds of courses, and I had met some friends on a new course, and they told me about this new movie that was going to be screened, and that I should go and see the movie. It was called The Secret. I don't know if you remember The Secret.
I do
And
indeed.
I went to the screening of The Secret, which was probably about 16 years ago. And John DiMartini introduced, he spoke just before the screening. So I didn't actually go to see John, I went to see the movie. And he spoke, and I fell in love with him. I got really inspired. And then it was also really early days. He used to have small crowds. It was when he first started coming to South Africa. And I went to every event of his that he spoke at initially, and I bought all his books and all his CDs and DVDs, and I just fell in love with his work. And it was only about a year later that I finally did his his signature program, the Breakthrough Experience. I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter at the time. I wanted to do it at the beginning of the pregnancy. I was really just ready, but I felt like I was too tired. I was early pregnancy. I needed to sleep about 16 hours a day. So I did it when I was 6 months pregnant, and it was life-changing for me. It really was life-changing, and I knew then that I wanted to help people. If I could learn this and help people change their lives as much as it had changed mine, that's what I wanted to do. And so I became a facilitator of his. I attended all his advanced courses, and I've been a student of his now for 14 years,
You
and
know,
continue to.
the interesting thing about him, and I'm going to sort of generalize now, is a lot of, and I'm sort of taking it slightly out of the realm of life coaching and more into motivational speaking. There are a lot of motivational speakers that are like a sugar rush. You're feeling a bit down, you go and have a chocolate, boom, you get this wonderful rush of energy. You leave their talk and you go, what did they say? While you were sitting in there, you were rah, 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 and you were going out with the flags and the placards and all that type of thing. And by the time you left, unless you bought a book, you had no idea of what they'd spoken about. It was that instant. With John, it's totally different. Once you've been in that man's presence, you remember him and you remember stuff he says. A, he's a fast talker, so you've got to keep up with him. And I think it's part of his innate charm. And B, he's telling you things that you may not necessarily not know, but you don't know that you do know. And all you need to do is understand that you know and take it from there and work with him rather than against him.
Exactly. So I must say that he would be very upset if he heard you say that he's a motivational speaker.
Now that's why I said I'm taking it away from life coaching, because he's not.
And the difference, and what he says the difference is motivation is something required from the outside.
Yeah.
So we go to a motivational speaker to give us motivation. He likes to be known as more of an inspirational speaker, where we are inspired from within.
Yeah.
And he teaches the difference. And so one of the key differences is that we don't want just positive thinking. It's impossible to just be a positive thinker. and this is what causes so much suffering, is that we think we should be one-sided. We think we should be kind and patient and positive all the time, and then we beat ourselves up when we can't be. But actually, the negative thinking has a purpose, and it is a feedback system. And so he teaches a way to balance our thinking and balance our perceptions, which then frees us up to then live an inspired life and focus on what's most inspiring to us. And that, for me, is a game changer.
Yeah, it is, because as you say, everybody wants to be positive. I see myself as grumpy and cynical most of the time, but I suppose it does give me a perspective on certain aspects of life, so that when the good stuff does happen, then I can leap up and down and go, yes, there is good out there. It's just taken me a bit of time. Has 2020, I alluded to it as a decade, has lockdown been different for you and your clients? Have you seen a difference in people? In the beginning, it was almost fun. Yay, we're going into 21 days lockdown. It's an enforced holiday. We can get stuff finished. And I'll put my hand up to be the first one to put my hand up to that. Finish the novel that I'd started, finish the online course that I'd started 19 years ago. And that was on day one. By day 3, I'd forgotten all about that stuff. It was a case of, all right, there's other more important things to do. And as it progressed, for me, mentally, physically, I could deal with it, but the mental aspect got harder and harder and harder to deal with. Have you found this with your clients? And if so, how have you enabled them to overcome that?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I got really busy because the stress and the uncertainty, I think, is what has been the most difficult thing for people. And we spoke before we started recording to say that everybody is in the same storm. And no matter how, whether you're in the dinghy or the yacht, there are challenges in your experience. And nobody is escaping challenge in this, COVID 2020 experience. Nobody. And so the thing is that people don't understand that stress becomes addictive. And so uncertainty causes a stress response, and it's normal. We are designed to look for, and that's why we beat ourselves up for not being positive, is because we're actually designed to look for what could go wrong, because it's in our genes, it's in our DNA, it's how we stay alive. It's part of evolution, is that we're not designed to look for the worst possible scenario and then prepare for that so that we can stay alive. The problem is that that was fine, when there's a lion, you're facing a lion in caveman days, but there's no lion in the room at the moment. And so we are acting as if there is constantly. And our body's not designed to stay in this kind of heightened stress response all the time. And so what happens is that can actually make us sick. Also, what happens is we get stressed, and we think a stressful thought because, of course, there's uncertainty, and uncertainty is stressful. And when we think the stressful thought, the body releases stress chemicals into the body. And then we start to feel stressed, which then helps us think more stressful thoughts. And then we release more stress chemicals into the body, and then we feel more stressed. And it becomes this thinking, feeling loop. This is something I learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza. And we become addicted to those chemicals without even realizing it, if we do it long term. And so most people over this period have, because of the uncertainty, because of the challenges, it's very new, that without realizing it, we've become more stressed, more anxious, more pessimistic, more on alert, because for several reasons. And what we don't realize is if we don't take time out and we don't find ways to break the stress response, it becomes then an addictive way of being, and it eventually becomes our personality trait, this way of thinking, and the body gets used to it. And then when you think, okay, I'm actually going to be chilled today, I'm going to calm down, I'm going to be more positive, I'm going to look on the bright side, it becomes very uncomfortable. We look for reasons to feel that stress again. The body actually needs its fix. And that's why, I mean, you love to travel, so do I. That's why I couldn't understand why sometimes it would take me a whole week to unwind on a holiday. And finally, I start to feel normal on the last day, and then it's time to go back home. And on the first day, you're back in that heightened stress response because you're back in those triggers. So it's really important to understand that. And that's what I've helped some of my clients with, is how do we break the stress response, and how do we gain perspective and deal with the uncertainty that these challenges are bringing.
We're all part of a rat race, but unfortunately the rats are winning. And I can identify with what you were saying, because I went to work in New Zealand some years ago. And for the first sort of 5 or 6 days, I was there for several months. And for the first few days, I was extremely uncomfortable and anxious. And I couldn't understand why. And then I realized, because there was no anxiety. I was anxious about not being anxious. And once I realized that I could walk in the middle of the night without feeling fearful, all of those things, then I relaxed, and for the next several months, I was in second heaven. I loved the country. I really and truly did. But as you say, it takes you a while. And I think that's maybe, if we go back to when we went on holiday with our parents, the holidays were long so that mom and dad who were working could actually have that sort of first week to unwind, a week of holiday, and then a week to prepare for coming back to city life and all that engendered with it. So maybe not traveling at the moment has been a good thing, because then we can be stressed about other things. Like, do we want to go to the shop, and who's not going to be wearing a mask?
The thing with travel is that it allows us to have a different perspective, and we get out of our environment and our daily triggers. And so it does help us to calm down. It's not just that you're on holiday. So often we think, geez, I need a holiday. What we need is we need to have a reset. And the thing is, we can't all travel all the time. We can't take those long holidays. Most people don't take those long holidays anymore. And for several reasons, we can't travel. And so it's really important to find other ways to reset. And, you know, a really simple way is just to go and spend some time in nature. 10 minutes, proven 10 minutes in nature shifts our brainwaves from the high beta brainwaves that we may be in if we're highly stressed, or beta that we're in probably now, you and I, just in normal thinking brainwaves, into the alpha brainwaves. And in the alpha brainwaves, we go beyond the analytical mind, and we're able to just get a different perspective. And in that space, our nervous system can calm down, and the survival hormones stop flooding the body, and the body can actually have a reset and a refuel. And we can do that with just 10 minutes a day.
Okay.
So it's really important that we take these little holiday breaks throughout every day to start to shift it. And then holidays are great if we can, and that's what it does. But if you're not careful, you'll be in the same state on the holiday. If you're not doing the things that are going to help you to unwind, you can be just stressed on holiday. And I'm sure you've experienced that with some of your trips. So
it doesn't always work the way, in the relaxing way that you think it's going to. Louise, when people look for a life coach, when people sort of think, maybe I need somebody to point the way, to be the torchlight for me in this darkness, what should they look for? And the converse, so what can they expect from a life coach, and what do you expect from your clients?
So I think it's important for them to try and understand what they're looking for. Because they want to have certain needs met. And the problem is, people don't always know what they're looking for. Often, you know, when I see clients, they come to me with a surface issue, and I understand the deeper issue. And that's fine. But so they need to understand what they're looking for, and then to do a lot of research, I would say, and have chats and phone calls. I mean, I have phone calls with my clients, prospective clients, before taking on a client, so they can see if I'm the right fit for them, and I can also see if they're the right fit for me. You know, they need to ask, what is your experience? What is your journey? What do you specialize in? What kind of clients have you worked with? And how do you help? How do you think you can help me? These are the questions they need to ask. Like, how could you help me with this situation? And then see if whatever the coach responds, if that feels right to them. And I really would say that it's more trusting than their intuition, that this feels right, more than a list of a top 5 list of what to look for. It really must be a good fit. And I think that it is important to know that if you're going to go for a coach, you need both support and challenge. If you want transformation, you need to be able to be challenged and be willing to be challenged. And this is what I look for, is I want somebody that wants that challenge and will do the work, and is prepared to do the hard work and answer challenging questions. So I believe a good coach will both support and challenge you equally. And so I'm looking for clients that will resonate with me, that I can help with problems that I think I've experienced or very similar. And if I feel like it's not something that resonates with me, I'd rather say, this is not for me, rather look for someone else, or refer them to someone that I know could help them with that. Because it really needs to be a good fit. And a good coach is someone who has kind of gone through something similar, walked the talk. And then from that place of certainty, they can help somebody. And so that's why I feel most inspired to work with mothers, because that's been my journey. businesswomen, or housewives, that's irrelevant. But mothers that are challenged with whatever they're facing in their lives, because that's been what I have experienced, and I've integrated, and I have certainty, and I know I've overcome certain things. So I think you never want to go to a financial advisor who has less money than you. And I think the same thing with a coach is that you want to ask them and see if you resonate, and how they would help, and whether those tools resonate with you or not.
Louise, is coaching finite, or is it open-ended?
That really depends on the kind of coach and what you're looking for. The journey is infinite, but I very seldom have clients that stay with me for a long period. I'll have clients that'll come for anything from 3 to 12 sessions, from a month to 6 months usually, and then often they'll go away and they'll apply the tools. I teach tools that people can use in their own lives, that they can use themselves, so that they don't need to rely on me. And then what will happen is clients will come back when they've got a challenge, and they sometimes even when I'm stuck, I go to people to help me. I've got all these tools, but sometimes I need an outside perspective to help me. I also need coaching sometimes. So, and then sometimes clients will come back, they're in a different place in their life, or they've got a big challenge and they really need help with this challenge. And so I don't believe that you ever want to be dependent on somebody. The whole point of coaching is to empower you to then move forward with your life. And then, if you want to tap in and, like every now and then, I go to a chiropractor and have my back aligned every so often, that's fine. Go in and kind of, get some new tools and new perspective. I'm growing, I'm on a journey. So, a couple of years down the line, I'm not the same person I was a couple of years ago, and neither are you. No one is. Yeah. And so I've learned and I've grown, I've got new tools. So with some of my clients, we've grown together. And so, a couple of years down the line, I've got more to offer. I've learned more, especially if I'm dealing with kind of a younger version of me, a younger mom who's struggling with challenges I've been through, then, we can walk the journey together. But I wouldn't say that it is healthy with anybody really, or any kind of therapy, for it to be ongoing. I don't know that it is most effective.
Okay, because I was just thinking you're going to get people who maybe say to you, so who do you go for or go to when you need coaching? And then they'll phone that person and go, who did you go to? It's like going to a tattoo artist and working your way to a tattoo artist who has no tattoos. And you go, right, this is the person that will tattoo me because he or she is the best. They won't allow anybody to tattoo them. My first tattoo artist was exactly like that. He had not a single tattoo. But he tells me he doesn't like them. He has body piercings, which I refused to look at and wasn't interested in. But that was his shtick. So,
well, my husband did that. I mean, when we learned, he did the breakthrough with John DeMartini with me as well. And where I went back and did all of the courses and continue to do the courses with John DeMartini and many other coaches. I've traveled the world and learned from coaches and gurus around the world. My husband went to the core. So if you have a look, right at the top, those books right at the top there, those are called the Great Books of the Western World, and those are some of the books that DeMartini recommends that he learned from some of the greatest teachers. And so Ryan then went and learned from those teachers. I've read the books, but I continue to learn from different coaches. But here's the thing, is that I learned from DeMartini. One of my biggest mentors. So any of my clients could potentially just go directly to him.
Yeah.
But I've made it unique. So what's unique about me is I work predominantly with mothers, and I've combined a lot of other tools, but I've combined that, and I understand how to really apply it when it comes to raising a family and the challenges of running a business, having a job, raising a family, and then dealing with those challenges. So you'll find a teacher that really is perfect for you, and that's the most important thing. Is that's why I say, do your homework, look around and find somebody that fits for you, and maybe try a few. You don't get stuck on one person.
Louise, we're coming to the end of our time together. It's just flashed past, would you believe? It's one of those wonderful chats where I don't have to dig for answers because you're so passionate about what it is that you do. How do people get hold of you? Do you have a website? Is there just a contact details that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, thanks. I've got a website. It's louisediesel.com. And you can find me on Facebook, Louise Diesel, and also on Instagram, Louise Diesel.
Great stuff. Louise, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm motivated to go and write an exam now, which I was putting off. So thank you for that. And
Thanks,
thank you for being with me here on In Conversation With.
Thanks, David. It's been a joy.
My guest this morning on In Conversation With has been Louise Diesel. Louise, once again, thank you. And thank you to those people who view these chats. In Conversation With is available on YouTube. You can go and subscribe.